What's up, everybody? It's Geekapedia here.
Hello, y'all out there. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with a video.
The crossover has finally happened.
Yes. Too bad this isn't canon to Netflix.
Yeah. Alright. Oh, you go ahead, man.
Nah, I was going to do you do your thing.
Okay, so today's video, we're going to be doing something that I personally have been wanting to do for a while, but especially since we got tickets to go watch the sequel this Thursday, we thought it would only be fitting if we did a review on the first Venom film, which was released on October 5th, 2018.
Right, and we also stack up piles of heads and arms in the corner, so Geekapedia?
Yeah.
It's like, pile of bodies, pile of heads.
I swear, like, I read this review after I watched the movie, and somebody said that Venom was going to become a cult classic. And so the fact that people are saying those lines prove it's becoming a cult classic.
Well, Venom's already pretty much a cult classic, if you really think about it. He was one of the OG Spider-Man villains.
Yeah.
Aside from Doc Ock. Not in my opinion, one of the big three, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, and everybody's favorite, Sexy Black Cat.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they just consider Venom part of the big three arch enemies just because out of all the villains he's had, him, Green Goblin, and Doc Ock have had the most impact on him.
Yeah.
Because Green Goblin was not only the first villain to find out his identity, but he was also the first person to figure out Peter's identity. So that gave Green Goblin an opportunity to hit him right where it hurts, at home.
And if you look closely, you'll notice Geekapedia and myself are wearing non-official fan merch.
Oh yeah, baby. We're wearing these on Thursday when we go watch Venom Let There Be Carnage.
Thursday, I've been wearing the same shirt and pants for a week straight.
Yeah, it's melded to his skin now. That's not a shirt anymore. That's his skin.
Like, I am Venom.
I haven't worn this as much as he has. That's because I have been washing it over and over again to make sure it is spotless.
And fading the colors.
Yes. I don't know, Carnage, you can still see Carnage pretty good.
But in any case, the first topic that I think everyone wants to know about, aside from the review of the first Venom movie, is the new color schemes that they're going with the symbiotes.
Oh, yeah?
Because if you see the Venom 2 trailer, we're going to be discussing a little bit of Venom 2 in this, but if you see the Venom 2 trailer, you'll hear Venom say, "Oh shit, it's a red one."
Yeah.
Leading to everyone believing that there is a color hierarchy among the symbiotes.
Yeah. That would kind of explain, because in the first movie, Venom called Riot a team leader, and it's implied that the group of symbiotes that came to Earth, Riot was their leader. And the very fact that Riot was clearly stronger than Venom in their initial fight in the first movie shows how much of a power scaling you have between Riot and Venom.
Now, in the original comics, they did do this a little differently, considering the fact that Venom was actually the one who was used to create Riot and all the others.
Mm-hmm. Because in the comics, the Life Foundation, they took the Venom symbiote and they spawned all the different symbiotes. So technically in the comics, Riot is Venom's son.
Similar to Carnage. However, we do not see Riot exhibit the same advantages he has in the comic books in terms of his ability to withstand sound waves, because it was originally canon that every generation of the symbiote is superior to the previous one, which is why Carnage is not only stronger than Venom, but also has the ability to not only be less susceptible to flame and sound, the two major Clintarian weaknesses, but also in some iterations almost seems immune to them.
Yeah. Going off of that too, in the comics, Riot has nowhere near the many powers that he has in the movie. Because in the movie, when you see him making all these weapons out of his limbs and tendrils, he had none of that in the comics. Like, the director of Venom flat out confirmed that they had to power up Riot just to make him a formidable enemy to Venom.
Now, I can understand that, but with the Riot blade things, I feel like they limited Riot's blades to mainly just Riot's blades share a very similar shape to the tip of a katana. And I feel like Riot would have used more serrated blades, kind of like saw blades, more than giant axe reversed bearded axe-shaped blades like he does in the movie. And shooting off spikes from himself, I would feel like that could also lead to maybe Riot spawning an egg left behind. So, Riot very well could have done something similar to Venom on his way to the Life Foundation, which could actually lead into a Venom 3.
Yeah.
With the son of Riot.
Yeah.
Or Let There Be Riot.
Yeah, I could see that. And going back to how you said about the weapons, I love the first Venom movie, but probably one of my biggest criticisms I have of it, I feel like, especially with Riot, he wouldn't develop much as a character and what he could do with his abilities. Like you said, it just felt like there was something lacking in his abilities and what he could do. The very fact, like when Venom called him a team leader, they were kind of trying to portray Riot as this savage general kind of dude who knew so much about weapons and knew how to use them in the right way.
Not entirely true. Historically speaking, there are some generals who were limited in their choice of weaponry because of social standings and political limitations that nobility and high-ranking government officials had to face.
Yeah, but if the theory that there's a symbiote hierarchy is true, then we could only assume that would place Riot somewhere near the top, and since he's a symbiote and has his kind of powers, there wouldn't necessarily be a limit to what he could do.
Exactly. But even with Riot, there would still be limitations on the symbiote's powers, because they can't go shooting off magic blasts unless they have a magic host.
Mm-hmm. Like if he bonded with Doctor Strange, then he could probably.
Or if he bonded with Iron Man, we would see Carnage shooting off repulsor beams.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be cool.
That would be cool, actually. But in any case, and very much similar to what you were saying with the limited weapons, in the Han Dynasty of China, years ago, during the Han Dynasty, everyone had swords that were in the court. Swords were everywhere. They would be worn on their back, and you would flick your right arm along with your heavy, wide robe sleeve over the grip of the sword to draw it. But they would be worn on the back as a status symbol. Mm-hmm. We could atone Riot's choice of weapons maybe into the same category, where a higher ranked symbiote has a specific type of weapon that he prefers or must use because of social class. We just don't know what this Venomverse hierarchy is all about, or if they have specific weapons to match the rank.
Yeah, I would definitely say that as well, and with that, it would also it reaffirms that Venom is, like he said, he was a loser on his planet. Because whenever Venom fights, not just when he's fighting Riot, but when he's just fighting in general, we see Venom is more of a hand-to-hand combat guy. You can just see him using his arms to fight Riot.
I'd very much atone Venom to a common foot soldier if we are going to go into ancient military hierarchy, where Riot, I don't really see him as a full-blown supreme commander of the entirety of the army, right underneath the king in terms of political power. I would see him as more of a general or maybe a captain or colonel rank, because historically speaking, medieval armies didn't have nearly as many military ranks as we do today. They did not have vice captains they did have lieutenants. They did have, but I don't believe they had any majors or sergeants or anything. You were either foot soldier, well-respected foot soldier, a captain, a vice captain, a lieutenant, which would also be a vice captain, a general, or you were the king. Mm-hmm. So I would put Riot somewhere within the captain rank and maybe not the whole general rank, because if he was a general ranked symbiote, I feel like he would have had far more destructive power than what he already showed.
Yeah, but I definitely feel that no matter what Riot's position in the hierarchy was, I think it was really clear that he was a pretty savage fighter, especially when he threw that sharp piece of, like a blade, into Eddie's chest. without warning, without hesitation. So I definitely kind of feel like Riot was definitely super brutal.
I feel like Riot is more of just the veteran soldier who, when you send him into battle, you know that this is going to get done at a specific time in a specific way, and he's going to be at the evac point every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really believe Riot to be savage is more along the lines of he's cold, calculated, and ruthless.
Yeah.
Whereas in the trailer clips for Venom 2, we see Carnage is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
He is completely without any form of calculation at all in his murderous rage.
Mm-hmm. Carnage, he literally lives for blood and murder, mostly because of his host being serial killer Cletus Cassidy. So there's definitely a lot of differences between his fighting style and Venom and Riot's. Whereas Riot and Venom are on two different places of the hierarchy, they still kind of fight similar, where they pretty much have their senses and they can time what they're going to do. Whereas Carnage, he doesn't care. He will do anything. I like the director of Venom 2 compared fighting Carnage to trying to fight an octopus. And so far, I feel like the trailers have really sold that.
I feel like the trailers have shown us a little too much of Carnage,
me
by
too.
the way. I remember watching old movies, the ones that were first on when DVD was a new thing, because I have a few of those, and I saw some of the trailers for other movies that were on the bonus features, and they really didn't show all that much. They showed you enough to whet your appetite. It was what it was supposed to be, an appetizer for the main course.
Mm-hmm.
They showed you enough to whet your appetite and get you interested.
Mm-hmm.
With Carnage, I think they showed too much. The way I would have done it was allude to Carnage, show a few pictures of the tendrils, all the way up until the end, where I would actually reveal Carnage's face alone after he had transformed.
Yeah. I feel like the first Venom 2 trailer was actually the best trailer out of all of them because it gave us exactly that. It felt like an appetizer to it because it gave us just enough to show us what it was about without giving too much away.
The modern day trailers and everything out there, they give you, it's like they're trying to shove two main courses into your face before you even gotten through the first drink phase.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of dining idioms here, but aside from that,
yeah. And I definitely liked how the first trailer for Venom 2 ended with the full shot of Carnage because it was mostly dedicated to Cletus Cassidy, and then because we can all agree, everybody is mostly excited because we want to see Carnage in live action. So they knew they had to show Carnage in the trailer at some point. They didn't have to, put on a full-on scene that all the newer trailers are doing. But they just needed to show enough that gave us a clear look at what Carnage was going to look like, but just enough that would still keep us interested, because if they show us everything, then that's gonna kill everyone's interest because there's no need to go watch it.
It's kind of like when they have those commercials for the iPhone 12. You know it does pretty much the same shit as the original iPhone, but you do know they added some new stuff, like they added a crisper camera or better processing software. It would be the same thing as them just shoving the product out before the actual release of it.
Yeah, I definitely, and two, what's really hurt this movie, they've been releasing what's called TV spots every day. The TV spots are pretty much like the commercials they show on TV.
Yeah.
And every single day I wake up and there's a new one, and it's all got new footage, and everybody, and even myself in the comments are like, I'm hyped for this movie, but it feels like we have already watched it with all the stuff they're putting out.
Well, if we were to take all those little tidbits and put them into and figure out their chronological order, I feel like it would be a 10-minute just full summary of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have, and there's something about the religious aspect of the Carnage scene that needs to be spoken about, and that's how in the comics they're hyping Venom up as a Jesus-like Messiah character, and Carnage to be the Antichrist of the symbiotes.
Well, not necessarily. It's fairly recent that they're doing this. It's in the Absolute Carnage storyline, whereas Carnage pretty much becomes the prophet type character for the symbiote king Null, and Carnage comes to Earth to clear the way for Null's impending arrival to Earth.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but whereas Venom, he's more against it. Whereas Carnage is the Jesus parallel, where he's for Null arriving.
Yes, but because of the aspects of Carnage, he fits more into the role of the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Venom, he fits more into the role of the Messiah of the human race in this instance.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, us two specifically, the reason why we've drawn that comparison because much of the marketing has shown Carnage inside a church. I think a Catholic church. And then there was like one part of the trailer where he's wearing like a robe, and in my opinion it kind of looked like a garment that like a Catholic priest would wear. So I kind of feel like it might fit into that aesthetic that he's in a church. But the latest TV spot had him like flirting with Shriek, the female character who can shoot sound waves out of her mouth.
Basically Marvel's version of Black Canary.
Yeah. So that's now got people to think, okay, maybe it's not the Cult of Null, but it's just Carnage and Shriek getting married, or something like that.
Well, in my opinion, I think it does, because you and me are of the same opinion on this, where we believe that it is going to lead into a Null storyline at some point. Sony can and probably will make the Venomverse. That's the proto name that we created for this, the Venomverse.
Yeah, but the official name, they released it, it's called the Sony Spider-Man universe. And there's rumors, I haven't looked too much into it, but there's rumors that there's a really huge post-credit scene in Venom 2. And I didn't go too far into it, but my prediction is it's got something to do with Spider-Man.
It could very well have something to do with Spider-Man, because Sony is attempting to get Spider-Man's licensing back, but I believe that it has something to do with Null, and eventually, maybe in Venom 3, if they do a Venom 3 or a Venom 4, we're going to have something to do with Null and the other symbiotes of the Clintar race.
I don't think they're gonna have Null in Venom 3 or 4. I don't think they're gonna have Null in a Venom movie at all. Because, you know how, like, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they would have the little phases and it all lead to the Avengers movies. And in the end, it was all supposed to lead into a battle between all the heroes and Thanos. Well, there's a lot of rumors that Sony's going to be doing that, but instead of the Avengers, they're going to use the Sinister Six. So, like, you'll have Venom and all these characters forming the Sinister Six. So I think, while yes, they are going to lead into Null, I think they are going to use Null as the villain of a Sinister Six film. Since it is what they're pulling it together.
Well, I believe that I really believe that the Sinister Six might actually be a better group for Venom to fight himself.
Yeah.
But I would personally prefer seeing Null in cinematography because of his dragon symbiote.
Yeah, Grendel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, fun fact, Grendel comes from the Norse saga of Beowulf. Mm-hmm. Where Grendel's mother was a witch that, if I remember correctly, could transform into a dragon. And Grendel was a troll that Beowulf fought while completely naked.
Mm-hmm. And I think they kind of took that a little bit in the comics too, because I could be wrong about this, don't quote me, but I think that Null can actually transform into Grendel. There's like they're the same character technically, but they have two different personas.
I think Grendel was made from Null's shadow, so Null can take on the same form as Grendel does. But I think they are two separate entities now, because Grendel would be the symbiote and Null would be the host.
Okay.
Because Null is not technically a Clintar, he was the creator of the Clintar race.
Mm-hmm. He looks exactly like them, but the rules he follows is much different than the biological rules that the symbiotes follow. Because Null, since he is their creator/god, he's on a higher platform than they are.
It's much the same when anyone creates something. when an author, I've even said this to Geekapedia before, when authors create their worlds, example, Star Wars, George Lucas is the supreme god of all Star Wars because he is the one who created it. Despite Disney owning it, George Lucas, when he was still had all the creative rights, he was the supreme god of Star Wars because he controlled every aspect of the story. Same with Dragon Ball Z and Toriyama, where he made himself canon.
Mm-hmm. But the only rebuttal, I do see what you're saying about that. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but the only rebuttal I have that is George Lucas, well, Toriyama did confirm himself as canon in the Dragon Ball universe, so that's non-debatable. Toriyama is the supreme god of Dragon Ball. He's higher than Zeno. But George Lucas, while he is the creator of Star Wars, it's kind of wrong to call him the god of Star Wars because no one in the franchise within the Star Wars universe worships him as a deity. When you worship someone or something, that's what classifies them as a deity or a god.
I'm not using the literal sense of the God definition. I'm using the sense of God as in he created, as in the biblical God.
Okay.
Where 6 days he created man, and the seventh he doth rest. So it is the sense of you create a storyline, you create a world, and you create these characters. You've given them life. You are essentially their god. Even if you write a sub-god into the plot, like let's say all of a sudden we wrote a story called Bunny World, and all these anthropomorphic bunny people lived, and they worshipped Kerator, the supreme god. Even though they worship Kerator, they are in essence worshipping us because we created them. A little side note, we're still doing that later.
Okay.
But in any case...
Only us would come up with an anime about bunnies worshipping carrots.
Exactly. If you don't know, Geekapedia and me actually have our own cinematic universe in the works.
Yeah. Well, it's more of like a multiverse because everything has its own distinct universe and continuity.
Yes. So, it's called the BC universe, but that's for different reasons because it's the beginning letters of each of our first names.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna keep. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say we're not going to divulge our first names.
That was literally what I was gonna say.
See, we're mind melding, and we don't even need psychological drugs to do it.
Yeah.
Take that, Woodstock. But in any case, I think. Do you have any rebuttals to add or anything to add about the Venom original movie?
Well, we mostly broke down a lot of Riot's thing, but like Riot's character. But I feel like if we're talking anymore, I feel like we should get into like what we liked about it, what we maybe didn't like, what we hope the second movie does as like an improvement, or what we hope it keeps.
Well, there's obviously applying to be some form of love triangle between Eddie's psychologist and Anne.
Yeah.
Well, it would be more of a love square with Eddie and Venom and the psychiatrist.
Yeah, the doctor. And based on the trailers, it seems that the psychiatrist, Dr. Dan Lewis, and Anne are going to be engaged. Engaged at the very least. Because we do see Anne with a wedding ring, and Eddie is congratulating Dan at the end of the second trailer, and Venom slaps him.
While Venom hates, it's like, you stole my woman, I'm going to beat you to, are we trying to keep this PG-13?
It's up to you.
Okay, we're going to beat the fuck out of him.
Yeah. But I do want to say this. Dan is probably the best character of the first movie because it breaks a stereotype in a lot of films. So in a lot of films, when you lose your love interest, like if you get a divorce or something in a film and they find someone else, they're usually a jerk to the previous love interest.
Yeah.
But in this one, Dan is really the nicest guy in this movie.
You could argue he's better than Eddie in terms of how he treats Anne.
Oh, he's way better than Eddie, than how Eddie treated Anne.
Because Eddie did a major dick move when he used Anne's personal files and got her fired from her law practice to make a case against the Life Foundation. Mm-hmm. Which, if he had just simply stuck to what his editor told him to say, he never would have met Venom, and he never would have had to go through the shit that he did. But they had to figure out some way to tie in Eddie Brock's original backstory of writing a false newspaper story and framing an innocent man.
Mm-hmm. And the mention where Eddie was run out of New York from the Daily Globe, that's actually in the comics, because the Daily Globe is actually the Daily Bugle's main rival in the comics. So if the Daily Globe is confirmed to exist, and the Daily Bugle logo was seen in the Venom 2 trailer, then the wider Spider-Man universe does exist.
Well, the thing is, Spider-Man himself is separate in terms of his contractability because he's been in so many different Marvel storylines. Characters like J. Jonah Jameson, Mary Jane Watson, Gwen Stacy, Doc Ock even, some of Spider-Man's rogues galleries, I believe they have separate contracting fees or licenses.
So everything Spider-Man related is owned by Sony. Marvel doesn't own the film rights to Spider-Man anymore. But what happened back in 2015, which allowed Spider-Man to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Sony and Marvel is pretty much sharing Spider-Man. And the reason why Sony couldn't use Spider-Man in the Venom movie was because Marvel was using him. It's like if Outlaw Samurai let me borrow his sword right here.
Hey, B, did they already go up there?
No, they already left.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. But this is still his sword, but it's at my house. He still owns it, but it's not at his house, so he can't use it at the moment because it's at my house.
Then I take it back and he has to commit seppuku.
No. But you understand how that's saying, right?
It would be... So, with that in mind, I feel like they can still use Spider-Man in the Venomverse, but because of the whole legality